Once upon a time, in a faraway land, there was a young girl who was to be married to a prince. Her father, a wealthy and successful general, presented her a beautiful ring made of gold and diamond as a wedding gift. The girl gladly accepted the ring, and upon marrying the prince, was given the royal title of princess. The two later had a son and became king and queen. All was well, but not for long. Just a few years after the wedding, in ongoing wars, tragedies found them, and the noble family faced a decision that would change the trajectory of their lives and the legacy forever. Deciding to leave their royal life behind, they fled to the United States. It was here the young boy received an education, and it was during these school years that he met the love of his life. The two were later married and had a daughter, and the former queen gifted her daughter-in-law the ring her father had given her. Years later, the ring was passed down to their daughter upon marriage, and thus a tradition was started. For generations, the heirloom was passed down to the first daughter and the ring holder's immediate bloodline to wed and bear children. A century later, two sisters find themselves unwillingly competing for the responsibility of faithfully continuing their ancestors' tradition, as well as its unifying, yet conflict-ridden legacy.
As a kid, it was really cool to be like, oh, I'm related to a princess. Obviously, I would brag about it to like some school kids, and they didn't like me for that, but that's okay. I'm Bridgette. I'm from Chicago, and I'm currently studying at Pratt Institute to be a 2D animation major. So I'm in line to inherit the ring. The first time I learned about it, I was visiting my great-grandmother, because I would visit her a lot, especially over the summer, during the holidays and everything. She had like a bunch of like old photographs and like Turkish stuff and like just really cool things that like as a little kid I was like, whoa. The ring is a 4.5 carat diamond, and it is surrounded by, I want to say about 16 half carat to 1 carat diamonds as well. It has been passed down through quite a few generations in my family. The first daughter to have another daughter is the person that's going to get the ring. So if I were not to marry and not to have a daughter, then it would go to my sister, but my sister is pretty determined to not have any kids. So if she didn't have a daughter either, then it would actually switch back over to my great aunt's side of the family. My grandma, she has a sister, so whoever out of the two of them had like a daughter first, then they would get the ring, and then it would go down that line specifically. They do not get along. Like even like just about anything, they don't get along, and it's really funny honestly to watch. They're extremely competitive, so you know for sure that my great aunt is like kind of upset at the fact that she didn't inherit it. I know like specifically at my great grandmother's funeral, my grandma had worn the ring, and like we were like eating dinner, and I looked over at my like great aunt, and you could just tell she had like a look of disgust on her face. Like she was just like looking down at the ring and then looking back up at my grandma, and like it was again for me really funny. There's definitely a tension going on that's been there for a long time. My grandmother, she has tiny fingers. And so with the ring, she decided to have it go to a jeweler and have it altered, and so it fits on her finger. But there was a lot of controversy around that within my family. My mom was very against it. My great aunt was very against it, because even though it can be undone, it's still like, you're messing with it. I'm currently studying to be an animation major. Being an artist has impacted the way I look at the ring. I have a huge appreciation for how jewelry is made, because there is a lot of craftsmanship that goes into it. Tampering with someone else's artwork, in my view, is wrong. It wasn't my grandmother cleaning it or like preserving it in a specific way. It was her adding to it, and I felt like it kind of took away from it. In this instance, it feels like we're changing something that we shouldn't change. I do personally align myself with some spiritualism aspects. The ring has a large history with it, and each person that touched, like that has held it, has put their own like energy into it, and so having it go and like then be altered, I feel like you kind of disrupt that connection, and you're adding something artificial to it. I grew up really only knowing about this side of my family, and so again there was like this huge stressor on, you are Turkish, this is where you're from, this is all that you are. My grandmother, we got to talking about like her mother and like our family and everything, and she just like told us how essentially like her dad moved from Turkey to the US because of World War I. The Ottoman Empire didn't do too well in that whole situation. My great-grandmother's father was hiding in like a certain building, and it was him and a bunch of other government officials. People were storming in and fully like beheading, torturing, killing, like just horrible things, and sticking like heads on spikes and putting it outside of the building in the Capitol. So he was like afraid for his life that was going to happen to him as well and his family. I know like growing up, I definitely just thought of the ring as like, oh, this is this cool thing that like my family has. Learning so much about where it came from to where it is now. It's been passed down from so many people, and it sounds weird, but like the ring has experienced so much as well. It's like really important to me to like have it at least in our family. But then like as I start to get older, there definitely is like this kind of like pressure to keep it in our side of the family, especially because of like that feud between my grandma and my great aunt. I know if I do have kids, I would pass that on, showing how much it means to me and like the rest of my family. Obviously, I wouldn't want to put a lot of pressure on them or anything like that. I do find it really important to keep this tradition going, but I don't want it to become a burden to anyone. Rings in general usually all have like their own meaning, but I feel like for this one specifically, especially based on everything that like my family has been through, it's all about like unity and bringing people together, while also kind of bringing people apart in some ways, but mostly it's bringing people together. Having like this one touch point or connection, especially just with this ring that is going to last a long time and has lasted a long time. It has this opportunity to just bring all of these different generations together.
Like all other art forms, the heirloom carries with it a historical, sentimental value, bridging the gap between generations. Will its looming essence continue to burden future heirs with the responsibility of carrying out a specific way of life? Only time will tell. Yes, the heirloom's end is uncertain. Where and how its legacy concludes is unknown to all. Time passes, and with each new heir, its relevance shifts, as does its value, its meaning. But what remains is legacy. For as long as the heirloom is remembered throughout time, it shall maintain its place within the family, century after century, until the very end.